everyone, this is Radio Hazbin here to do another hot take, obviously, for this video. Obviously, this is a follow-up to the video that I had made for Monday, and of course this is going to be released for Wednesday. Friday will be Hazbin's Instagram Part 5, just so you guys are all aware. Again, make sure you hit subscribe if you're new here. Again, helps in the algorithm, helps me boost you up. I want to get to 10k by, well, the end of this year, literally in the next couple of weeks. So anyway, so obviously we're going to be talking about the 7 princes. And of course, apparently that they've now stated, of course, on the Velephago's Twitter page, that apparently there are 7 rings rather than 9. So again, debunks my theory that I did on the Pentagram City. So we already know 3 circles. We know the Circle of Pride, which is of course where Pentagram City is with Lucifer. We have the Circle of Greed, which is done by Namon. Well, Namon to be more exact. And we have the Circle of Wrath. But what do we know about the other princes? So obviously we're going to be going into that very, very quickly. Obviously, Namon is the Prince of Greed. Obviously, he has been referred to as the Beelzebub as well. But of course, the Beelzebub is also another prince. There is also Leviathan. Many people portray it as a serpent-like creature, especially because of a famous popular game, Final Fantasy. But it is a symbol of envy, which is quite egregious. Well, considering obviously that Leviathan is pretty much, well, sometimes it can be a symbol of the word green, but also could show greed. But with envy, obviously, in this case scenario of the Final Fantasy series, it's more towards, of course, obviously it being a land creature rather than everything else. I will be reading off the Wikipedia pages. Again, this is the Fandom pages, because again, there's not much information out there at this moment in time, especially for demology. More likely, probably HH Blue Dynamite is probably going to be covering this. And she also studies this kind of thing. Probably Blue Raven's going to cover this, because obviously the Church of Whip, more likely to the Witch Talk series that he's currently doing. But of course, I'm doing this because I'm actually a Satanist. I'm a tier 3. So obviously I have to support the devil in which I can. And if you guys actually want me to explain the rules, my rules and what I have to do as part of my religion, let me know. I may cover that in the near future. There may be other things I may cover, but again, I'm gonna do that for you guys. So anyway, obviously there will be little cuts here and there. So again, as I will explain the rest going forward. So let's go through all the prints. Lucifer, we have Velephago. We have obviously Namon, which obviously has been named already. We do have Leviathan. Yep, Beelzebub. We have Satan, obviously. He's already debuted. And Asmodeus. So we will be going through all those today. So let's start off with, of course, the ones that we actually don't know about. Obviously, we already know about Satan. We already know about Lucifer. We don't know much about Namon, but I will also be going into him also. So that way you guys actually know who the princes are in more likely in their professions. So we'll be going into that very quickly. So let's start off with, of course, the next circle down being, of course, Gluttony, and that is with Velephago. Velephago is a demon lord that presides over the sin of sloth, and one of the 7 princes of hell, and rules hell and helps people make discoveries. Velephago gives people ideas for inventions that will make them rich and thus greedy and selfish. He seduces people by suggesting to them ingenious inventions that will make them rich. Velephago is a lieutenant from hell and has been dispatched to Earth on a mission by Satan. In doing so, he found a particular affinity for Paris, France. His name is the corruption of Baal Pure, the name for the god of the Moabites. As one of the fallen angels, Velephago was originally a member of the principalities, and after his fall became the demonic counterpart to one of the 10 Sephiroth that oversee the Tree of Life. He's pretty much creative technology to what we currently have, the sin of sloth in this case scenario. Again, obviously with this particular information, this is just mainly a short summary. This was roughly about 2 paragraphs long. So obviously, now that we've covered him, let's move on to the next one. So now we move on from Velephago to Namon. Obviously, there will be images of those, particularly on the screens here when I get around to it. So now we're moving on to Namon. Namon is known as Namon or Plutus. Is a powerful demon that commonly personified as greed, and is a noble demon lord of avarice, richness, abundance, prosperity, wealth, and injustice, most often personified as a deity. During his time in heaven, he was depicted as forever looking downward at heaven's golden pavement rather than God himself. After the rebellion in heaven, Namon was banished to hell, where he is one who finds underground precious metal that his demonic companions used to build their capital city, Pandemonium, by Lucifer's order. Namon consoles the demons to be happy with what they have got, to create a home for themselves in hell. His appearance, Namon, is somewhat similar to the gods Platus and Displater, especially this when Platus appears in the Divine Comedy as the wolf-like demon of wealth, was being associated with greed in the Middle Ages. Thomas Aquinas metaphorically described the sin of greed as Namon being carried up from hell by a wolf, becoming inflame the human heart of greed. Obviously, in this case scenario, again, we don't know much about Namon at this current moment in time. It seems like more likely to not get on Lucas's bad side, especially of course with the Brazilian world Lululand, obviously contrasting and paradising and trying to profit money off of Lulu World, which was run by Lucifer. In this case scenario, which of course is sneaky, that family obviously that he wants money also. And again, obviously, we have more information on him now. So let's move on to the next one, shall we? Okay, so now we're moving on to Beelzebub, which of course is the sin of gluttony. Beelzebub was an angel, more specifically a seraphim, that was once under the archangel Gabriel, and revered as a pristine deity named Beelzebub. Either way, Beelzebub had fallen and joined Lucifer to become a high-ranking demon in hell. In Catholic demonology, he is sometimes considered to be one of the first 3 angels to fall from heaven, along with Lucifer and Leviathan. We'll begin on to Leviathan in just a moment. Beelzebub is often confused with Satan, and the 2 names can be interchanged. However, strictly speaking, there are 2 separate entities that tells of Beelzebub led a revolt against Satan, though this is most likely not true, and become the founder of the Order of the Flies. Beelzebub is the chief lieutenant of Lucifer and is one of the most loyal to the Morning Star. Beelzebub is commonly described as a place high in the hierarchy of hell, was the order of the cherubim, or seraphim. So let's move on to the next one. So now we actually move on to Satan himself, who was originally voiced by Ed Vosco in the Son of the 666 animation that Vivziepop did years ago. He is the Prince of Wrath, which is kind of fitting since obviously that he lives in a hellish background, and we already know who his wife is in a sense. But of course, if you guys read this Vivziepop comics again, which I do recommend you guys actually start to read. Again, in this case scenario, obviously Lilith is supposed to be married to him or be a consort of him, but of course that is not the case in this case scenario. So, what is the description of Satan? Satan, also known as Shaitan, Sodomor, Satan, or the Tempter, the Evil One, the Devil, formerly known as Satanel, is a prominent figure in all Abrahamic religions, though mostly Christianity, following various roles in their literature. He is known for bringing evil and temptation, and is also known as a deceiver who leads humanity astray. Satan is even able to take control of the life of a person instead of God, though only to an extent to what God allows. In absolute dualism in ancient Qatar texts, however, Satan and God were said to exist at the same time and be equal in power. If this has any truth to it, it would mean that Satan is supreme antithesis, and when creation is destroyed, he will once again exist in timeless nothingness with God once more. This is most likely untrue, as God's powers cannot be rivaled by Satan. Satan would appear to those who are sinful, playing into their hearts, towing them into despair. They may either be depicted as a rebel to the will of God, or as one who tempts mankind to sin to show God that mankind easily be led astray from him. You gotta admit, this is kind of true in this case. In the Hebrew Bible, the New Testament to be more exact, Satan is primarily an accuser and adversary, and decidedly malevolent entity, also called the devil, who possesses demonic qualities. Satan is said to be also associated with the 7 deadly sins, being wrath. He is also one of the princes of hell. He is described as the ruler of demons and the god of his age. In Revelation, Satan appears as the great red dragon, who ultimately is banished from heaven by Michael the archangel, which is usually said to be Lucifer. Satan is mostly known as the devil, and although the book of Genesis does not mention him, he is often identified as the serpent in the Garden of Eden. This may be debunked by Vivienne, but again, I can't specifically tell at this moment in time. So, let's carry on. Satan's appearance is often never described in the Bible, but since the 9th century. He has sometimes become shown with horns, cloven hooves, hairy legs, and a tail, often naked and holding a pitchfork, an amalgam of traits derived from various pagan deities such as Pan, Poseidon, and Bes, though he is fully able to completely fit after his physical appearance. So obviously, Satan is obviously a much more powerful demon than anyone else here. But in this case scenario, at this moment in time, we already know from Xenophobia and of course the comic itself, the Son of 666. Again, seems more like obviously he's the one that mostly traverses obviously hell, color, and more like he probably loved Twitter considering there's a lot of angry stuff happening there. Am I the only one that's not laughing about that mentally? I probably am. So let's move on to the next one, shall we? So now we move on to the Prince of Envy, being of course Leviathan. And yes, this is going to be a lengthy video because again I'm making a lot of cuts because there's a lot of information that we don't know. And again, this fandom wiki will be linked in the description below. It does actually link to a lot of sources in the actual text itself, especially referring to other gods, other deities, etc. Leviathan is one of the 7 princes of hell and its gatekeeper. Leviathan, as the gatekeeper, is known as the Hellmouth. Oh, I wonder why that sounds so familiar to Destiny and Destiny 2, where its mighty demon's mouth is said to represent the gates of hell itself. He is also the representation of the sin of envy. The entrance of hell is envisioned as Leviathan's mouth. It's due to the fact that when the whale is hungry, he opens his mouth as the sweet smell comes out. The fish are tricked by the smell and enter its mouth. Suddenly, the drawers close. Leviathan and the gates of hell are inextricably linked to one another. as it said that the demon's very mouth, famously known as the Hellmouth, can lead to the depths of the abyss as well. Obviously, we don't know what Vivienne's gonna do with this kind of information, so more likely, probably, if we do actually end up going to going to the Ring of Envy in this case scenario, more likely, if we do see Leviathan, he's probably gonna try and start shit. Just saying. So, let's move on to the next one. So now we're moving on to the final one, being of course the Prince of Lust, Asmodeus. Asmodeus, also known as Asmodandi, Chimedade, Synode, Shikra, Ashmadea, Asmodeus, Asmodee, Asha, Ashemede, Ashemedeva, Saturn, Moroth, is the king of demons and earthly spirits, mostly known from the detrimental book of Tobit. The demon is also mentioned in the Traumatic legends, for instance in the story of the construction of the Temple of Solomon. He is supposed to be the Renaissance Christians to be the king of the 9 hells. Asmodeus is also referred to as one of the 7 princes of hell. He also represents one of the 7 deadly sins, being lust. Being the demon of lust, he is responsible for twisting people's sexual desires. It is said that people who fall for Asmodeus' ways will be sentenced to an eternity in the 2nd level of hell. He is also a demon of literary, jealousy, anger, and revenge. Asmodeus became the husband of Lilith, which of course is actually debunked, especially in Vivienne's case, since obviously Lilith is with Lucifer. So obviously, this kind of information that we just got here is completely irrelevant, especially in the Vivzieverse. Moving on. Asmodeus is either a ruthless, brutal monster or a mischievous demon endowed with a playful and satirical genius. He is the deity of Persia's mythological pantheon and an infernal entity in the Judaism in hell. He rules over the gambling casinos, and he is said to be the creator of carousels, music, dance, and drama, and is currently ruling the patron of French designers. The Book of Secret Magic of Aimgilin, the mage, says that Asmodeus is the offspring to incestuous union between Tubal Cain and Namon. Others call him the demon of impurity, in which the Jewish law says he is the father-in-law to Baal Shaman, a fellow demon. So more likely, in this case scenario, from what we actually know about the princes, there are some that basically that way to the side, such as, of course, Lucifer, probably not, probably Velephago. There are a lot that way to the side, whereas there are some others that tend to start shit. Again, Satan, Namon, Leviathan, and of course Asmodeus. There are some that wish to start shit, and there are, especially in the human world, and there are some that wish to basically just see what goes on, especially with other things that happen behind the scenes. So that is that. So basically that's all the 7 princes that we actually currently know about. Will we actually officially see them in the Vivzieverse? Again, we've already seen Lucifer, what he looks like, but we don't know about the rest at this current moment in time. We do know that Namon's been dropped, and of course we know what Satan looks like in this scenario. And again, there's also debunked my theory that Samuel is Satan in this case scenario, but again, we don't actually technically know. So again, this is my video, my hot take. If guys do like the video, hit the like button. If you dislike it, dislike it. And of course, leave a comment. Constructive criticism is welcome, especially on this channel. Again, Patreon link down below. There's also a join button if you guys want to join. Again, I do have Patreons for $1 if you guys actually want to join my Patreons. Again, if you want early access to this, again, Patreon, and of course my membership program, which I did explain heavily some time ago. So we're moving on to that. Again, Hazbin Part 5 will be out this Friday. Sorry I haven't been doing it for a whole month, because now Octavia's Instagram account is now open. If you're new here, please hit the subscribe button. Again, it helps. So, this is Radio Hazbin tuning in for now. Bye bye.